If you're a first home buyer right now, you are living inside the biggest contradiction in Australian property. On one hand, this is the best deal first home buyers have ever had. The 5% deposit scheme is uncapped. There's no income limit. There are generous purchase price limits. Regional caps expanded from July 1. Since just October, 40,000 first home buyers have bought using it. Single parents can buy with just a 2% deposit. There's the new Help to Buy shared equity scheme. You've got the First Home Super Saver scheme, which is more valuable than ever. There's stamp duty concessions around the nation. And Labor's budget changes to negative gearing mean the investor who used to bid against you is exiting almost entirely. More than half of all first home buyers in Australia today are using the 5% deposit scheme. The doors, in fairness, are wide open. But on the other hand, this is not a market that feels safe to buy into. Sydney values are down 3.7% over the year. Melbourne was down 1% in June alone. Brisbane, Perth and Adelaide have had enormous runs. The country is down 1.3% over the June quarter, the biggest quarterly drop since 2022. Interest rates rose 3 times this year, with no cuts on the near horizon. Auction clearance rates in Melbourne and Sydney are under 60%. Days on market and listings are increasing. And here's what the media is now picking up on. First home buyer applications have reduced since the budget, not increased. Down 20% on Aussie data, down 13% on Equifax. Which means that the buyers who did rush in from October using the 5% deposit scheme are now watching their prices go down, not up. Some are already in negative equity. If your deposit was 5% and your property drops 3 or 4% and you had to sell, you'd have nothing left. And on top of all that, has the war really ended? Is my job safe from AI? Will I get my bonus? Will inflation continue? That's the market right now. The best scheme set up in a completely confusing market and economy. First home buyers should finally feel relieved, but instead they are sitting on their hands, wondering if they're about to catch a falling knife. I'm Chris Bates, I'm a mortgage broker. We work with first home buyers every single day. We settle hundreds of loans a year at Alcove. I've been working with first home buyers for 14 years. So today, let's dive deep. The maths on buying versus renting. The schemes actually worth using. The mistakes I see year after year, and how to think about buying in a market when everyone else is scared or confused. Let's go. The line I keep coming back to, and I cannot say it enough, it must be a good investment. The story that first home buyers constantly face. I have to get in, my rent is going up, my siblings, friends and colleagues are buying. My parents, grandparents and the in-laws keep asking when I will. Society makes me feel behind. Am I behind? I get it, it's real. That's the story and part of the reason you're buying. But it's not the reason to buy a property or the property you're looking at online. The property in front of you is either a good asset or it's not. Nobody's opinion changes that. A good asset is scarce, it's hard to replicate, and it's highly desirable by homeowners. And when you sell, and you will a couple, young family, older family, upgrader, downsizer, or a single parent family want to buy it from you? Or is it just a shelter for someone to rent? Is it something that a home buyer would love to buy to live in long term? Property asset growth is driven by owner-occupiers, not investors. Only last week, Catality released a report proving what we have always advised. If your buyer in 10 years is a family who wants to raise their kids there, you're probably on the right path. If your buyer in 10 years was going to be an investor who needed a tax break, walk away. This was always the case, but after the budget, new investor maths have changed. And to be clear, they were never the right future buyer. So before we talk about schemes, who is the next buyer of this property? Are you 100%, not 50-50, 100% that this is a good investment, that you can easily sell in the future when you want to? Are you truly confident that it'll be a good home for you, but more importantly, a good financial decision? If you can't answer both, you're not ready. Let's do some napkin maths. You should do this in your situation. The process works no matter where you are. Numbers change, but the principles don't. Take a $1.2 million house in Sydney. 5% deposit, 60 grand, plus another 60 grand for stamp duty and legals. So $120,000 out of your pocket. The starting loan, $1.14 million. At 6% interest rates, that's $68,000 a year in interest alone. The principal will be on top of that, but personally, it's best to think about that as forced savings because it is. Now let's add in the ownership costs. things you don't often know as a renter: council rates, building insurance, body corporate, maintenance, repairs. Something always breaks every year: the hot water system, the fence, or roof leaks. Realistically, ongoing costs could be 10 grand a year at least. Now we've got to add in opportunity cost on the 120,000. That's often forgotten about. At 5% interest rates in the bank, that's probably another $5,000 a year. So when you add it up, let's call it $85,000 a year all in to own a $1.2 million property. Now, what would you pay for rent for the same house? Maybe $800 a week or $40,000 a year. Sydney house yields are around 3 to 3.5%. You can do the numbers yourself on properties you're considering. In year one, owning a $1.2 million home costs $45,000 more than renting. Over 5 years, rent will go up and perhaps interest rates will go down, but it'll probably add up to over $150,000 more to own versus rent. Furthermore, if you have the ability to live with your family or rent at a lower cost, it's a lot more than that. And let's be honest, renting has its own benefits. When the hot water goes, the landlord pays. If you want to live in a certain suburb, you probably can. When your job moves, you move. When your relationship changes, you move. In terms of cash flow, choice, and flexibility, renting wins easily. And financially, even if rates fall and rents rise dramatically, it often wins. But that doesn't mean you should rent forever. It means you should know that when you buy, you're paying a premium over the short term to own versus rent. For certainty, for the benefit of owning an asset that may grow, for being forced to save. The home buyer usually beats the renter if they hold, if they buy the right asset, if they don't sell in a downturn, and to be honest, if the renter doesn't actually invest the gap. Most renters spend it. So in practice, over the longer term, homeowners win out over time, but not usually in the short term. They win when property prices go up significantly, because inflation reduces the real interest costs each year, because they avoid rent going up each year, and they are forced to save. But for first home buyers, if you're going to sell inside 5 years, you may be better off renting. That's not advice, that's the reality. I want to say this out loud because few in the mortgage broking industry do. There are people who should not buy right now. If you're 24 and you're still working out your career, renting is totally okay. If you're living at home rent-free and saving hard, every year you stay could be the best financial move. If you're unsure about the city you want to live in, your relationship or your income, or even about work, search for more clarity first. If your income is tight right now and your borrowing capacity forces you into a compromised asset, wrong suburb, wrong type of property, layout or building, you can become an owner, but are you making a good financial decision? Buying a bad asset is worse than renting, full stop. I've always believed that, and to be clear, many first home buyers who buy wish they never bought. Many first home buyers who bought high density apartments in the last 10 years thought they were getting on the ladder. If you look at the Totality Pain and Gain report, you will see there are plenty of people losing money on buying property. Melbourne CBD apartments, 47% are losing money. Ryde, 26%, Parramatta, 23%. Nationally, 95% of resales are profitable on their sale price. But when you add in all the costs, buying, selling, owning versus renting, holding, repairs, opportunity costs, that number drops dramatically. So to be clear, it must be a good investment and it must go up in value. If you're thinking about buying, here's what's currently on the table. There are a lot. Number one, the 5% deposit scheme. 240,000 first-home buyers have used it since 2020. But from October 2025, the chains have been taken off. Uncapped, no income limit, no lender's mortgage insurance. The government protects the banks on higher risk loans. You get a highly competitive interest rate from all the major lenders. There's generous price caps. Sydney 1.5, Melbourne 950, Brisbane 1 million, Perth 850, Adelaide 900 and Darwin 750. From July 1 this year, regional locations expanded. Newcastle, Lake Macquarie, Illawarra, Geelong, Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast. To be eligible, you must be a permanent resident. You must be over 18 and have not owned a property in the last 10 years. You must also be buying to live in. This is the single best option for first home buyers in Australia right now. Over 50% of first home buyers are using this scheme. Number two, the single parent 2% deposit. It's a similar scheme, but if you are a single parent, you can buy with just a 2, not a 5% deposit. Look, this is one of the most underused schemes in the country. And for many single parents out there, it's wise to get across it. Number 3, the First Home Super Saver Scheme. This is a deposit builder. You've got a $50,000 lifetime cap, $100,000 as a couple. $15,000 a year, you can salary sacrifice into your super. You get a tax deduction on the way in, and then you can pull it out for your deposit with tax savings. Post-budget, this one gets even more attractive. From 1 July 2027, share investing for a deposit will be more expensive due to higher CGT. Uptake has been climbing. 18,000 people released funds last year alone. Even if you want to buy this year, still consider it. But please be careful. If you don't buy, the money is locked away. And if you earn more than $250,000, the maths change. Number 4, the Help to Buy Federal Shared Equity Scheme. The government buys up to 30% on existing properties and up to 40% on new builds. There are income caps, $103,000 for a single and $165,000 for a couple or a single parent. Therefore, borrowing capacity and purchase prices are lower. You are buying in partnership with the federal government. They own a chunk of your property, call it 30%, and therefore they get 30% of any growth. That's not a disaster. It may help you buy a better asset and get a home you actually want. But read the fine print. If your income exceeds the cap in future years, they can force you to buy them out. Renovate without their consent, and you give them the equity uplift too. Shared equity is not free money, it is an equity partner. I have no doubt though that in time it will be a growing part of the market. But right now it does feel early. There's only 2 banks set up for it, and we're not exactly sure how it'll play out. Number 5, state shared equity schemes. It's a similar concept, state governments as your equity partner. Victoria's Home Buyer Fund closed in September last year. New South Wales closed the year before. Most states are walking away from these. A few still run, WA and South Australia most notably. But like the above, there's lots to check and be careful with. Number 6, the First Homeowner Grant. This is a cheeky cash cookie to encourage you to buy a new property. It's $10,000 to $15,000 if you build a new home in New South Wales, Victoria or WA. Tasmania is $20,000 and in the Northern Territory $50,000. The government makes a lot more than that though if you buy new. The real question, however, is if you're buying a good asset or you're just falling for the free cookie. Number 7, this is a big one, stamp duty concessions. Every state has thresholds and concessions for first home buyers. Some states are only if you buy a new build, but most allow you to buy established. These vary from around $600,000 to $800,000 up to $1 million in New South Wales. To be clear, these are a huge help. Stamp duty savings might be $20,000 to $30,000, perhaps more. Whenever you're buying an investment, if there's a cost to buy and sell, it comes out of your cash. So if you don't pay stamp duty, the cost of purchasing may only be a few $1,000s in legal fees. So government schemes are not the only ones helping. The Bank of Mum and Dad. Look, it's not a real bank, but if it were, it would be the 5th largest lender in Australia. $35 billion a year flows from parents and grandparents to kids to buy property. It is growing a lot every year. And to be fair, it varies widely. Some get nothing or a little, and many get a lot. More than half of all first home buyers in Australia today are getting some form of help. 10 years ago, it was around 1 in 10. In particular, over the last 5 years, we have seen a huge increase. Before, it was often a guarantor arrangement, a loan, or the ability to live at home rent-free. But now, it's usually cash gifts. Sometimes small, sometimes huge. Most parents don't expect the money back. Sometimes it's a loan. More often than not, it's an early inheritance. Those who do get help, though, don't just buy. It takes them much less time to save a deposit, so they buy earlier. They have more savings left after settlement, so they get a buffer. And more so, every year, they get help with mortgage repayments. They get peace of mind. If your parents are able to, they may be willing to help. It might be worth having a long conversation. It might be a win-win for the family with the right conditions. Parental guarantee. If your parents do not want to give you cash or provide a loan, and you're not eligible for the 5% deposit scheme, one option is to look at something called an equity pledge. In this situation, a bank will use one of your parents' properties as security for a portion of your loan. No cash changes hands. The big saving, it removes the need for lender's mortgage insurance. Once your loan drops below 80% of the property value, the guarantee can be removed. If your parents have genuine equity, ideally in an investment property, and no plans to make major property changes, it can be the smartest way for a family to help. It is underused, I would say, but you also need a clear strategy to protect your parents and yourself. Professional LMI waivers. If you're in certain professions, banks give you a benefit of not paying lenders' mortgage insurance. Doctors, dentists, medico specialists, 95% no LMI. Nurses, physios, vets, pharmacists, psychologists, 90% no LMI. Accountants and lawyers, 90%. Bank employees often get it too. If you're working in these industries, it's a huge win, both now and in the future. 90% no LMI deals. If you're not in one of those professions, there are more banks coming into this space for everyone else. It's a straight bank product, 10% no LMI, but they're higher rates at the moment. If you don't fit the 5% scheme, this might be an option. Low deposit home loans. There's always new fintechs coming into this space. Skip, for example, lets you buy with a 2%. Own home, top up your deposit as a second loan. Usually they've got higher rates and more complexity. It's not the first choice, but if nothing else fits, they might open a door. More of these come, and to be fair, go each year. Lenders' mortgage insurance. Finally, not to be forgotten. For years, first home buyers had to accept that LMI was a cost to buy. Even in 2026, it's sometimes a good option for those who do not qualify for the 5% scheme. Ideally, we aim for a 10 to 12% deposit to keep LMI costs down. So to wrap it all up, as you can see, there's no shortage of options. But the right option for you is to find a great mortgage broker to work with. They will know what options you have and help you work out the right strategy. Now, for the mistakes we try to help our first home buyer clients not make. The first one is borrowing strategy. Obviously, I would start here. But in 2026, almost every first home buyer wishes they could borrow more money. It is by far the tightest it has ever been. When I started as a broker back in 2013, it was probably around 7 times your income you could borrow. Now it's likely to be 5 times. So the game now is maximizing your borrowing capacity, not often about rate. Who will lend you more? What are your options if you decide to stretch? What would a pay rise do? Do you wait for a bonus? Do we sell the car and pay off a car loan? Do we cancel our credit cards or pay out our HECS? How do we structure our loan and get a buffer? What is the optimal rate? If you're a buyer, you need to learn about this early, not while you're out there looking. The key thing is getting pre-approved. And once you do buy, you can always go out to the market to make sure it's the most optimal option. You will sell it. This is not your forever home. It is most likely a stepping stone. You may think that you want to keep it as an investment property in time, but you'll most likely have to sell. You must have the sale in mind before and when you buy. Rushing. Look, it's taken you many years to save a deposit, but only 6 weeks to decide on a property. Often clients come to us, they get pre-approved, and they want to buy the first property they see at the first open. They want to tick that box and have it done. Take your time. The hard work happens up front. A saying I love is that if it's hard to buy, it's easy to sell. And the opposite is true. If it's easy to buy, it's hard to sell. Buying for today, not tomorrow. The one-bed apartment that suits you today, but not the couple or the family of 3 or 4 in a few years' time. Buy the property that fits the life you're building, not the one you're leaving, not compromising on location. Look, if you're a single or a couple, you want to live near your friends, I get it. But is it a good investment? Instead of buying a high-density unit, can you move a little bit further away to get a house or an older, bigger apartment? A location compromised today will give you many more options in the future. Not aligning with your partner. Buying with your partner means having the hard conversations first. Look, are we doing this long-term? Who's putting in what deposit, and what about the ongoing repayments? What happens if we break up? Are we going to try to have kids? To be honest, the biggest risk, besides the asset you buy, is not buying something together when you should, or buying together when you shouldn't. Society pressure. Buying because your parents keep asking, buying because your friends bought, buying to prove something to your partner, yourself, or a colleague. If your reason for buying is someone else's opinion, even if you don't want to freely admit it, you often buy for the sake of ownership, not because you focus on the end outcome. You are on your own journey. Buy the right property for you. FOMO. When prices are rising, buying anything feels like a good decision. But buying out of the fear of future price rises in hot markets usually leads to overpaying for poor assets. You have to work harder to find good assets in hot markets. Buying with no buffer. In 2026, borrowing capacity is tighter than ever. Most buyers have to borrow to the maximum a bank will lend. But that doesn't mean you have no buffer on the other side. You must have an emergency fund. If rates move or job changes happen, if you have no buffer, owning a home can be very stressful. Being too conservative. It's the opposite mistake. Sometimes clients want to buy an $800,000 apartment when a $1.2 million house is completely doable. You get one shot at using first home buyer incentives and to build wealth in your first property. Use it on the best asset you can afford, something that will genuinely match your life plan and give you the best chance of holding long term. Ignoring family help. Some Australian parents have record wealth, some don't. I get the desire to want to be independent, but not asking may limit your options considerably. Pride can cost you, but also requesting too easily can cause family problems. Ask deep questions and lean into those difficult conversations. Perhaps your parents' intentions are to help, but they're worried about what happens if your relationship breaks down. Buying with friends or family. Look, it can work, sometimes amazingly, but often it doesn't work as planned. Life changes get in the way. However, if it genuinely helps you both get a better asset and you have agreed a strategy and an exit plan, there are lender options. Not selling other assets. Some have shares, investment properties, or crypto. Perhaps an inheritance in a separate bucket. They get stuck not wanting to sell assets when the smarter move is to consider all options. Sometimes a little bit more cash makes a big difference. The needle in the haystack mindset. They almost get overeducated, overaware, and perfectionism takes over. I just need to get the perfect property at the perfect price. This absolutely can stop any property plans in its tracks. You need multiple options and know that what you actually want to buy exists. Skipping the building and pest. To be honest, you should never. Not on any property, especially on a renovated one. A cheap inspection report has saved my clients more times than I can count. Please don't accept the one the agent provides. Do your own. Off the plan. Often when you're exhausted, it feels safe and it gets rid of the pain. The deposit is small and the settlement is far away, but the data over the last decade is ugly. It's easy to buy today, it'll be hard to sell tomorrow. Purchasing panic. Look, real estate agents are masters at negotiation. We are not. The offer and the auction environment is designed to make you pay every last dollar you have. You have to play the game, but you also need to know how to price a property. Figure out what it's roughly worth. There's no exact price, but what you are prepared to pay, which may be above that. Set your walkaway number, but be realistic. Great assets don't go for bargains, and asset quality matters more than the price you pay. Not using experts. A good broker is not just about getting you a good rate, they should be educating you on borrowing strategy. If your broker is just a facilitator and a validator, get a better one. There is also enormous value in top buyers agents. Find a super experienced local one who buys exactly what you want. Start a conversation. Perhaps you can afford it. They can pay for themselves in many ways, and there's multiple levels to their services. Maybe they just help you bid at auction or help you with a negotiation or to a full service. Listening to too many opinions. Everyone has one, but be really careful who you listen to. Many are well-intended. They sound right, but they are misinformed. Many want to help you, but what worked for them. And to be frank, it probably won't be what's best for you. Giving up. This one gets missed. Buyer fatigue is real. It's exhausting. 12 months of searching, losing at auction, missing out on properties you love. Some buyers just give up and they stop. And some buyers come back to us many years in a row and go through the same cycle. After working with first home buyers since 2012, one thing stands out. The best first home buyer purchases I've seen were the ones made with an investment quality mindset. They were usually brave. They went on a journey as a couple. They educated themselves. They turned knowledge into action. They knew what they could control and what they couldn't. Social proof is the enemy for first home buyers. When your friends are all buying and prices are hot, everyone's paying too much. When the market is quiet and buyers are scared, when buying good assets is possible and vendors are willing to make a deal, everyone wants to wait. Post-budget in mid-2026, with the global uncertainty, it is that kind of market. Because prices might still fall, because rates might still rise. Investor applications are down 25% since the budget. It will be a lot more, I expect, which means the property investors that were bidding against you are just not there. So the right move right now is not to buy fast. It's to take advantage of that uncertainty and buy a great asset. If you want to go deeper on everything first home buyer, check out our First Home Unlocked podcast with Jack Elliott. We walk through every scheme in more detail than we have here. If you want to consider the right move for you, reach out on the links below. Next episode, we're on to the upgraders. See you soon.